Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to kind of conclude our envelopes tutorials by learning how to take all of our common routines that we've made and put them over into a common entity that we can just add to any of our projects. So let's see how we would do that. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here and we're going to add a new class to our project. So we're going to add a new item. And in this particular case, we want it to just be a class. And let's call this class Common. Notice we did enter our common underneath test script, not underneath solution items, which it was before. So we now have it under test script. Now let's make a few quick changes to this class. So now here we've added all of the usings at the top, and then this is kind of important right here. The namespace needs to be the same namespace that we used over here. So let's make sure that in this case it says test script. So what I did was I made this test script. Now does it have to be? No, you can still do it, but for simplicity's sake we're going to make this the same in both cases. And then I called this my public class common, and then I have a common routine where I'm passing it the Vegas variable, and then I'm setting this dot, let's call it my Vegas, equals the Vegas that was passed to it. So we've got a second my Vegas over here under common, and we're going to pass the Vegas variable to common. Now let's come back over to our regular class, and let's just take all of our extra routines down here, and we're going to take all of these, we're going to cut them, and we cut them out of class 1, and now we're going to come over to common and paste them. Now these should all be fine over here. And notice the set point, we'll still call set point here. We don't have to worry about that point, but now we do have to come back over here to our class 1, and we'll see all of these are no longer found. So we've got a bunch of errors. So I'm going to set up a common variable. So I want a variable of type common. Equals new common my Vegas. And now that we have our common variable set up, and so now we have our common variable, which is going to reference this class, which I just called common, equals new common, and we passed it the Vegas variable so that it now knows what the Vegas variable is. Now, for each one of these routines that were previously called to a local routine, we're going to have to tell it that these are now under common. So we can just say common dot in front of each one of these, and it knows that these routines are now found under common. Each one of these calls are calling the exact same routine that they were before, except now we are telling them they're over in this other place, and all we have to do is include this in any program that we write, and we can just use our common to call them. In order to put these in a separate routine, we will have to compile this into a DLL file, which will then be run in Vegas. So if we build this, it says the build succeeded. Now we have to run the actual DLL file. So if we come back over into Vegas, Tools, Scripting, Run Script, now we're going to have to go into bin, release, and you will see that we have a testscript.dll file. Now this has to be compiled into a DLL because we have two files that has all the information in it. So we run it and we can see that we did get the 4 points, point 1, point 2, point 3, and point 4 added to the timeline. And if we come over here, we can move the volume up or down in the center. Same thing here. And we'll see that it worked exactly the same as it did before. Now looking back at our code, suppose that we truly did want a totally independent file where it didn't have to have the same namespace. We could actually let it have a different namespace as well. Let me just call this, let's change this to common routines. And we'll name that common routines. Now, when we come back to class, you'll see that we have an error here because it doesn't know where common routines is anymore because it's in a different namespace. But if we just put the namespace here and dot, now it knows that commonroutines.common is where it's located. And then we do the same thing here. And so we do not have to have the same namespace. That it just makes it a little easier because you don't have to specify the namespace here. But if you do want a different namespace, then that's no problem at all. So you see, we can add our common routines over into a separate file, and we can just then call those routines the same as we would any other one. However, it's got the disadvantage in that it must be compiled into a DLL before you can run it, because Vegas doesn't know how to look in two separate files as a .cs. So you can do this. For the most part, I probably wouldn't. If they're just simple scripts, I would just copy the routines that I needed over. But if you do want to set up a set of common routines, or you're planning on compiling it into a DLL file anyway, and having multiple different DLL files, then so we're just fine. So give it a try, see what you think. And if you need everything, a just common repository, this is a way to create it. We'll see you in the next tutorial. Hope you find everything useful. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Like and subscribe. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.